Welcome everyone to another episode of Story of the Shot. I'm very excited to have Nathan Watson here with me. Nathan, how's it going?
Terrific, Ray. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. And what a shot. What a stunning, stunning image. I remember the first time I saw this, it blew me away. And I'm really excited to hear the story and also to hear you share this story because it's really a fascinating story behind this amazing photo, man.
There is, yeah, and thanks so much, Ray. I appreciate the invitation to chat to you about this photo. And as you have alluded to, it's a bit of a sentimental image to me, and we'll sort of work through that story as we talk about the shot today.
Yeah, and more fascinating than that is where you captured it, some of the other stuff you captured around it. I think there's such a great lesson to be had with this. And so, yeah, let's dive right in, man. I want to hear the story of this photo.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks. So this is what we call a New Holland honeyeater, and they're quite prolific garden birds, I suppose. They're very popular in gardens over here. So where I live in Albany on the south coast of Western Australia, for anybody who doesn't know, and yeah, just about any garden around, you'll see these birds, and we're quite privileged to have them breed in our garden. So they nest annually, and they've got their favourite spots. And this little honeyeater is sitting on top of a lilac tree in front of our of the main window at the front of our house. Yeah, so that's a sort of shot there for context, showing that stick that I captured the honeyeater on. And in the background, in the distance there, you can see a feature light through the window that is actually hangs over our dining room table.
Yeah.
So I sort of hadn't noticed this opportunity before, but the sentimental part of this story is that my son had just been born. So this photo was taken 3 years ago now, and it was early November. So the birds were breeding, and they were sort of nesting just down in front of the window. And we've got a video later on to sort of show that context as well. But
Yeah.
this became one of their favourite sort of lookout perches, and they'd fly in routinely every evening and sit on that. But I hadn't noticed this opportunity to sort of, I suppose, backlight the honeyeater with the dining room light until.
Yeah.
I was reversing out of the driveway one evening to go and see my wife and newborn son in the hospital, and there's me holding little Henry just after he was born, and
Wow.
and I think that photo was actually taken the morning before I saw this opportunity. So a very
That's
special
wonderful.
time for very special time for me and my family. So I had my little 2-year-old daughter. I was caring for her. Obviously, I had her in the car.
Yeah.
And we were backing out of the driveway, and you can sort of see the driveway here. And I sort of I looked out my driver's side window, and I was like, wow, the bird's sitting there, and the light's behind it. And
And so the bird was
coincidentally,
on it in that moment.
the bird was on it in that
Okay.
moment. That's right. So I've instantly seen this photo opportunity, and I've stopped the car, run inside, grabbed the camera, crossing my fingers that it's still going to be sitting there. And because when they perch up there, they do tend to sort of sit there for a couple of minutes and just,
Okay.
look around and whatever. So I was hopeful it was still there. Sure enough, it was. And you might want to play this video, Ray, just for
Yeah.
context of sort of our front garden and the big window that it's sitting in front of. And because my wife Michelle is a real green thumb and does a wonderful
Yeah, it
wonderful
looks
job with our
amazing.
garden. So it certainly in spring it looks beautiful with all the colour and flowers and different plants. So we're just going past that window now that it was sitting in front of.
Yeah. Very, very pretty.
Yeah. So I rushed inside, grabbed the camera, came out. The bird was still sitting there, lined it up, and took a bit of a test shot. And yeah, you can go back to the light just for some context, Ray, and we'll show that light. So this is the feature light that sits over our dining room table. And
Yeah.
we built our house in 2014, so we chose this long before COVID was ever a thing. But I now realise that
Yeah.
it looks a little bit like a COVID cell, unfortunately.
That's wild. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a sort of just a really artistic sort of
Yeah.
abstract sort of a light. So
Sure.
And as it shines through the window, it created this awesome sort of a effect that looked like a bit of a, digital flower, I suppose, which I thought was just really cool,
Yeah.
given it's a honey eater, they feed on nectar. We often see them on the flowers in the garden, but to sort of create this beautiful sort of unique backlit scene with bokeh and lights, essentially an urban light that
Yeah.
creates this form of a flower, was just amazing. So this is the first test shot sort of that I took very quickly on the way to the hospital, and we had our sort of drapes across the window at the time. So
I
that's sort of
have
the
to
effect that
ask,
you can see.
did you tell her
Hmm.
you stopped to take a photo before you got to the hospital?
I did, yeah, yeah. Michelle understands. She knows
She
how
knows you.
passionate
Okay, all
and
right.
yeah, and how committed I am to my photography, and um, I try to get that balance right, Ray.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
sometimes
So,
when things line up, you got to do what you got to do.
oh, that's right. Yeah, it's So this was the first test shot I took, and look, I quite like this image too. It's
Yeah.
really got that sort of home, sort of backyard feel to it. But um, so yeah, and I remember I messaged this to you at the time because
Yeah.
we chat on and off on Messenger, and I'm always very inspired by your creativity, Ray,
Thank you.
and I was really excited by this opportunity. And I remember flicking this to you, and you're like, "Oh, dude, that is so
Yeah.
cool!
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you do with it." And
Yep.
then, of course, the shot that we're talking about is obviously what I did with the scene. So
Yeah.
yeah. So this is the next day, bringing
Okay.
little Henry home, and that's 2-year-old Mila, and
Nice.
proud as punch, pushing Henry's pram out of the hospital. So yeah, that was the very next day, and
Wow.
well, morning I should say, and then that evening, you guess where I was?
Yeah. No kidding.
out the front, out the front with my camera, trying to line up the sort of shot that I saw.
And
Um,
so, what did you change? What did you modify as far as your position or anything to make this final shot compared to that first one? Because obviously, this first test shot, we can see there's something else kind of in between the bird and the light back there. And
yeah.
so, what was the thinking there to get to that final image?
So in that first shot, I've got the drapes or the curtains across the window.
Oh,
So it was
okay.
yeah. So it was very opportunistic. I didn't really,
Yep.
it was really just a test shot. And so on the second occasion, I pulled the curtains back to get a clearer
Yeah.
sort of view through the window of those lights. The other thing that changed was my lens. So in the
Ah,
first test shot, I just grabbed my 100 to 400, so it's quite a wider composition.
yep.
Because I really wanted to focus on the light and the bird, I grabbed my 500
Gotcha.
f4 for the second shot, and probably positioned myself a bit closer too. So
Yep.
I put myself in position before the bird was there,
Ah,
and just waited for them to fly in and sort of perch. Um, and I took this on my old Canon 1DX Mark II, so it was a DSLR camera, and it was a bit awkward. So the eye tracking of the new mirrorless would have made this shot a fair bit
yeah.
easier because because it's a little bit elevated above my. I'm about 6'2", 6'3", so I'm reasonably tall,
Yeah.
but it was still elevated just slightly above my height, so I had to get up on my tippy toes to get
Ah,
enough elevation to position the bird. So I was a little bit unstable,
yeah.
so trying to hold focus and position the bird was a bit of a challenge. But yeah, look, as luck would have it, and luck goes your way when you plan these things, I suppose. I
Yeah.
stood out the front for about an hour.
Not
The
bad.
bird, yeah, the bird came and went, and I had a few shots and eventually lined this up, and it was getting quite dark in the evening by that point. But yeah, look, the shot turned out just how I sort of envisaged it. Couldn't have been happier with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, or did you shoot any earlier, any later? Because the light to the ambient light outside to compared to the brightness of the light in the background seem balanced so well here. So it seems like it really did happen kind of at the perfect time because, you know, earlier in the day, your exposure is a little bit brighter outside, the light gets dimmer in the background. Too late, then maybe the light gets too bright. So was that something you really concentrated on, or did it just happen to work out?
Yeah, no, it was, and because some of the what I noticed from so in about that hour, some of the earlier frames that I took, there was too much reflection off the window, you know, so
Gotcha.
I was seeing objects in the window
Yeah.
that I didn't want to see, and they were a bit distracting too.
Yep.
And so the later it got, the less reflective the window was because the shadows and the light
Sure.
changed. So
Yeah.
the windows started to show more of the shadows than sort of reflecting the light and the other elements that were in the garden or across the street.
Yeah.
And I sort of just I modified my position slightly to try and you know, really eliminate that reflection off the window,
Yeah.
which worked. It really did.
Sure
Yeah.
did. Yeah. Yeah. It sure did.
So as it got a bit later, I played around. You know, as the sun set and the light got really poor, I stopped right down and tried a silhouette as well, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. You know,
Yeah.
I never shared this image, but it's you know it's got its own appeal, I suppose,
Definitely.
um, and it sort of really again highlights the warmth of those lights and the
The
unique
shape.
form of that
Yeah.
light as well. Yeah, the shape. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool.
So photographing birds in the garden is something that I really had I really concentrated on while I had the little ones. You know, when you've got a baby, it's pretty intense work and you know lots of time spent caring for them. So I really didn't get the opportunity to go out and you know field trips that I'd normally do. So I really
Sure.
did spend you know weeks concentrating on just getting you know, just getting that itchy trigger finger sorted in the garden. And that's my little daughter. That was my little daughter Mila with her toy camera. So she was
Oh,
standing
nice.
alongside me, pretending to take pictures of the birds with me, which was a nice, just a
That's
nice
great.
little moment that Michelle captured while I was yeah photographing the birds. Yeah.
That's so wonderful. And I love kind of what you mentioned just a little bit before we recorded. So I'd love to hear more about these photos, which by the way, this one just another absolute stunner too. All of them great, but wow, that's a standout to me.
Yeah, thank you. And that's probably my favorite of this set as well. And there's actually three layers of rose foliage in that
Wow.
shot. There's two foreground layers and obviously the background layer.
Yeah.
And it's the sunset shining through that foliage in
Man.
the garden. And I've sort of focused on the honeyeater, you know, through just a tight window through that foliage and created that sort of abstract sort of feel to the image with, you know, you can just see that hint of foliage coming through in the bokeh.
Ah, love it.
Um,
Absolutely love it. Yeah.
and that
And
pop of red is a
yeah,
rosebud.
that's
Yeah.
cool. Nice. Nathan, I got to ask you, man. So these birds, number one, to me, a species I've never seen. They seem very, you know, foreign. They're, you know, they are across the world on the other side of the globe, and they're stunning to me. But you said in the beginning, they're common. They're pretty regular. They're standard. Do you ever kind of take them for granted, or you're like, ah, it's just another one of these? Like, does that happen for you, or are they still hold a special place? Do you still get enamored by them?
They're pretty fun to photograph. They're very gregarious characters and
Yeah.
very confiding as well. So um yeah, look, I probably started to take them for granted a little bit of late because I've taken so many photos of them and I
Yeah.
suppose I've just got a little bit tired of it. But I'll never pass up a unique opportunity if I can find one with them because they're just wonderful birds. And and these three images were all taken on that same lilac tree in front of the
Wow.
big house window. And so that's sort of what I wanted to share here is that, you know, these are all done at different times of the year on the same tree that they perch on. But because of the different time of the year, there's different lighting opportunities, there's different foliage. And so I thought it was just a really nice way to show, you know, these three photos plus the main image that we're talking about are four very different
Yeah.
images, but all of the same species. But it just shows what you can achieve when you sort of look at a scene at different times of the year in different lighting conditions and from different perspectives and what you can do with it. And I suppose that was just something that I wanted to convey through this conversation to those who might be watching is, keep trying to look for different perspectives and try different things and experiment because you can come up with some really amazing images when you open your eyes, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think, I previously asked you, is this something you take for granted, the species and just the common nature of them being right in your backyard all the time? And I think it's so easy to see the obvious sometimes, see the obvious shot. And even though, you manage to kind of, almost stumble your way into seeing this by backing out the one day and noticing the bird there and capturing something unique here. But then beyond that, it can be so easy to just say, oh, I've captured what I can here, instead of sort of really paying attention to them. And almost, to me anyway, I don't know if you've experienced this, you have to almost actively slow down and really dig in and pay attention and look around and consciously think in your head. And I've done this many times, Nathan. I have to say, is there anything else I can do here? What can I look for and see? Because if not, it's so easy to just pass, all opportunities like this by because it's just a bird, it's always there and there's nothing else I can do.
I agree, and I think the other key point of it too is we've made the comment a couple of times that these are really common, but I think sometimes that gives you the best opportunity to be creative because the common birds are more accessible. They're often more habituated, and you'll see them in a wide variety of locations as opposed to those species that are a bit rarer and are harder to find.
Yeah.
And so they give you opportunities to get creative like this. So I think that's a key message too. Don't overlook the common just because you see it every day. Don't take them for granted, like you say, because there's beautiful images that can be created with them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And you've really, really shown that here. This is a lovely little video.
Yeah, so this is looking out of our lounge room through that window that I captured the bird in front of, and you can see one of the little honeyeaters sitting there on a nest. So this is the main reason why they perch on that lilac tree is because this is, so they nest down in the garden there, and we get a bird's eye view to their nesting behaviour and activity when we're sitting in the lounge room, which is wonderful. And one year they actually nested right up against the window, and we could see the three little chicks and mum and dad coming and going and feeding them. It's wonderful. So
that's very cool.
It's cool, and the kids really love the birds and the animals. This is Henry now. He's 3 years old now, so I thought I'd show a photo of him, given he was only a little tacker when I took this photo. But they love nature and the birds. I think that's something
good.
really special that Michelle and I are sort of sharing with them, and they really love it. And Henry's got a real eye for seeing the birds in the garden, and he points them out to me, and he's starting to learn their names.
I was going to ask. Yeah,
so
that's really great.
Awesome. And little Mila. Yeah, it is. And little Mila's only 5, but she can tell you the scientific name of all the native plants in Mum's garden. So
wow, impressive. I can't tell you the scientific name of anything.
Yeah.
So.
No, I can't either. I get all tongue-tied. But she can roll it off. Yeah, no, she's
that's great,
very
man.
good.
So what a story. It really is. I love how it came about. I think it's so great, like you said, that you just had your eye open to seeing that opportunity. And there's really something to be said, Nathan, for not just seeing something there, but seeing the potential in it and how it translates through the lens or different focal lengths and stuff like that. And knowing, just because you saw that bird as you were driving out, sitting on that perch with the light in the background, I'm sure you could already, as you did immediately, you can envision what's going to happen when I shoot this with a telephoto lens and compress that scene together and the shape that's going to happen back there. And so it really goes a lot to your vision of being able to kind of connect those dots and see the final image in that scene as you were backing out,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's and it's exciting. It's rewarding when you see those opportunities and and you sort of pull the image together, and it's really rewarding when it comes together and you capture sort of the shot that you saw the potential of. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I love when that happens. So the last little bit to wrap up the show here, we got the raw file, the straight out of camera on the right here, your final edit. So not much to do there, but what was your thinking in your edit?
Yeah, and look, that's something I sort of really do strive to do, is get it as right in camera as I can, and just edit very subtly to obviously retain the integrity of the scene and what I saw.
Yeah.
In this instance, I underexposed it slightly. That was probably partially due to the lower sort of ambient light at that time of the evening and trying to keep my ISO a bit lower.
Yeah.
And just making sure I didn't blow, the highlights in those lights either. So I've done a minor crop, as you can see, just to improve the composition, but I've more or less lifted the shadows. I've just made a couple of notes here because it was 3 years ago I edited this, Ray. I had to I had to go back and have a look at what I did, but not a lot. Yeah, so I lifted the shadows, and I just did a subtle color adjustment, firstly to cool down those shadows on the window a little bit. When I lifted the shadows, there was just a little bit of warmth coming through in them, so I cooled them down to retain those nice blue hues.
Yeah.
But then I warmed up the color on the lights just a little bit after I lifted the shadows. That just just lost a little bit of that depth of color, so I just brought a little bit of color back into it. A slight contrast adjustment on the bird, but I actually reduced the contrast on the lights. So I just wanted them to be a little bit softer in the background than what they were showing. And I added just a subtle vignette around the image, and that was it. Voila! There's the final.
There
product.
it is.
There it is.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the show, share the awesome story behind this. I love, the family connection. I love the message of, really keep your eyes open and get the variety. And it's really awesome to see this final result of that image you sent me so many years ago when you were so excited and first found that out, man.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. I'm really glad that you like it. I hope those watching enjoy the image and enjoy the story behind it as well. And really appreciate the invitation to have a chat about about my photo. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And keep it up, man. I'm always excited to see what you keep coming up with, dude.
I'll try.
All right. Thanks so much, Nathan.
Thanks, Ray. Cheers.